Hey, what's up everyone, Paul from Grindhouse Funhouse. I am in front of my vinyl wall here in my living room so I can show you all my favorite soundtrack releases purchased on Record Store Day throughout the years, and also to welcome you to my Record Store Day 2024 complete vinyl soundtrack list video. I've been doing this video for the last 5 years now. I very much enjoy showcasing all that will be available on Record Store Day, which this year will be held on April 20th. Doing this video is very helpful for me to find out how my wallet will be bled dry, and also I'm sure it's helping some of you out there as well. Release-wise this year, we're getting just a bit more at 16 compared to the last year's 13 and the 24 releases we got in 2022. That's 10 releases in North America and 6 in the UK. As always, it's a mix of scores and various artist soundtracks. I'm splitting up these 16 releases into 4 categories. The newer releases, which spans from the year 2000 up to right now. After that will be the 70s, 80s, and 90s releases. Then of course the maestro Ennio Morricone gets a category all by himself. And finally, the ones I'll buy category, sharing with you the ones I think are worthy of being picked up. Alright, so sit back, relax, and let's start with the newer releases. Which there is only one, but it's a big one and a favorite of mine with 2003's Lost in Translation. The original release of this amazing soundtrack was in 2003 on Emperor Norton. Then in 2019, people went nuts for the violet-colored vinyl on that Record Store Day, which I tried my hardest to get my hands on, and came up empty-handed until Rhino Records reissued it in 2022, and that's the release I've had ever since. But now, this is the one release everyone will want to have in their collection. This time around, it's a double LP set. The first disc being the same with the score pieces by My Bloody Valentine's Kevin Shields and songs by Air, Phoenix, The Jesus and Mary Chain, My Bloody Valentine, Square Pusher, and more. But on disc 2, this is when it gets interesting. It's curated by Brian Reitzel, the music supervisor on Lost in Translation and a score composer in his own rights, featuring additional tracks that were in the movie but not on the original soundtrack from Peaches and the Chemical Brothers, but also the karaoke tracks Bill Murray performs with Scarlett Johansson in the famous Tokyo bar scene. God Save the Queen, Nobody Does It Better, More Than This, and
What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding?
This will be released by Rhino Records. It's an RSD exclusive, pressed on black vinyl, complete with a Japanese-style obi strip, and it's limited to 5,000 copies. On to the next category with 70s, 80s, and 90s releases, so basically anything horror, comedy, action, drama released in those decades. First up, we have Airplane, the classic Zucker Brothers comedy that reinvented Leslie Nielsen's career into the comedy star he became.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
Regency Records originally released it back in 1980, but it only had 6 tracks, 4 being songs heard in the movie, the theme song from Jaws by John Williams, and the love theme from composer Elmer Bernstein. This time around, it's being released by 1984 Publishing / Rusted Wave Records, and we're getting the full score from Bernstein, which is over 40 minutes of music that's been remastered, with a gatefold jacket containing original press images. It's an RSD exclusive, and only 1,500 copies will be available worldwide. 750 copies will be offered in There's No Stopping in the White Zone colored vinyl, and 750 copies in There's No Stopping in the Red Zone colored vinyl. Up next, it would have been incredibly dumb letting this opportunity pass by, but Rhino Records was on the ball, or should I say bong, for this one with Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke. It was originally released in 1978 by Warner Records and reissued by Rhino in 2018. This 420 Record Store Day release is an RSD exclusive, will be available on smoky green vinyl, and is limited to 5,000 copies. Another classic stoner movie is getting an RSD release, and it's for 1993's Dazed and Confused. Not the original release of various 70s artists, but the second one, even more dazed and confused. On it, you'll hear the Edgar Winter Group, Alice Cooper, Steve Miller Band, War, Foghat, and Peter Frampton, just to name a few. Real Gone Music first pressed it on purple with pink splatter vinyl back in 2018, but this new repress will be on smoky purple vinyl. Sadly, no splatter. It's an RSD exclusive, and it's limited to 4,000 copies. Up next is 1997's Spawn, the Todd McFarlane created anti-hero comic book character that fell in its movie version starring the great Michael Jai White. One good thing that did come out of it though was this various artist soundtrack that is so 1997. The blending of styles from hip-hop to rock to nu metal to drum and bass to electronica, which did hit hard that year with Prodigy, Orbital, and the Crystal Method on the electronica side, and Ronnie Size and Goldie on the drum and bass side. Filter, Marilyn Manson, Stabbing Westward, Korn, and Incubus also appear on this soundtrack as well. The soundtrack was first released on vinyl by Immortal Records in Europe in 1997, reissued by Music on Vinyl in 2017, and now by Legacy Records. It's a 2 LP set pressed on smoky red vinyl, it's an RSD exclusive, and it's limited to 2,700 copies. Another superhero movie, this was the first time this Marvel character was brought to the screen, and that's Dolph Lundgren playing the Punisher in the 1989 movie. This double LP set marks the first time this score has ever been released on vinyl. The score was composed by Dennis Drake, who's mostly known as an orchestrator and conductor of other people's scores. You can hear his work in scores like Jurassic Park, Misery, Braveheart, The Shadow, The Rock, and a bunch more. Released by Note for Note Music, this is an RSD first release, meaning you'll find them first in indie record stores, but then might be released to other retailers or web stores at some point in the future. It shall be pressed on black vinyl and will be limited to 900 copies. Up next is the only 80s horror-related score being released on this record store day, and it's for the Bruno Mattei directed under the pseudonym Vincent Dawn and Claudio Fragasso for the 1980 Italian horror movie Virus. The movie was also released under the title Hell of the Living Dead. This was Bruno Mattei's first foray into horror, and in particular into the universe of the Living Dead. The score is a mix of cues used in other Italian horror movies like Zombie and Contamination, done by prog rockers Goblin. There's also cues from other movies by composer Luis Bacalov, and fresh music compositions done by film composer Gianni Del Orso. This UK release is a record store day exclusive, pressed on orange vinyl, and is limited to 1,000 copies. Up next, we got the one picture disc that will be available this year, and it's a limited 12-inch single for the 1974 Roger Moore starring James Bond movie The Man with the Golden Gun. For the 50th anniversary of the movie, they decided to re-release the theme song, which was performed by Scottish singer Lulu and composed by John Barry. Of all the theme songs John Barry contributed to the James Bond franchise, he says, and I quote, "It's the one I hate most. It just never happened for me." So on side A, you'll get the Bond theme he hates the most, The Man with the Golden Gun, and on side B, another Lulu track, A Boy Like You. Demon Records is behind this UK release. It's an RSD exclusive and is limited to 1,000 copies. And finally, the last soundtrack in the 70s, 80s, and 90s releases category is what I'm realizing just now came out in 1969, so oopsie. Ah well, it's the first release on vinyl from the Italian label BTF, and it's for the Italian comedy L'Arcangelo, translated in English as The Archangel. Scored by Piero Umiliani, none of the Archangel score cues have ever been released in any form for many years, only CD releases in Japan. This UK RSD exclusive is pressed on yellow vinyl and is limited to 500 copies. Every year I say this, but it bears repeating. What would be a record store day without a few releases from the maestro Ennio Morricone? So this is his own category. He's got 5 scores being released. The man may be gone, but he will never be forgotten with 400 plus scores composed in his lifetime. They'll keep being released and re-released well after all of us will be dead and gone. But in the here and now, here's what's being released on RSD 2024. The first one being 1974's Alun Safan, an historical drama starring Marcello Mastroianni. It was partially issued for the first time on vinyl in 1979 as a double bill with the movie Padre Padron, scored by Egisto Macchi. From the Italian label BTF, this UK RSD exclusive is pressed on clear red vinyl and is limited to 1,000 copies. Up next is 1976 Come Impare ad Amare le Donne, which translates to How I Learned to Love Women. It's an Italian, French, German romantic comedy starring Anita Ekberg. Its first pressing came out on RCA Italiana in 1966 and then reissued in 1985. From the Italian label BTF, this is a UK RSD exclusive. It's pressed on clear green vinyl and is limited to 1,000 copies. Up next is 1971's Sacco e Vanzetti. It's an Italian drama about death penalty. Its first pressing came out on RCA Victor in 1971 and reissued in 1979 and 1985, and then again through Music on Vinyl in 2020. Apparently, this is one of his most intense scores. There's an end credit song, Here's to You, sung by John Baez. Her folk music, songs of protest and social justice, were quite popular at the time. From the Italian label BTF, this UK RSD exclusive is pressed on transparent and red swirl vinyl and is limited to 1,000 copies. Up next is 1975's Storie di Vita e Malavita, which translates to Stories of Life and Crime but was known in English as The Child Prostitution Racket. Reading the synopsis for it sounds like a really cheery movie to watch. Restored and remastered from the original tapes, this is a first-time release on vinyl from Cam Sugar. This is an RSD first release pressed on green vinyl and is limited to 1,000 copies. The last Ennio Morricone release for RSD 2024, and is also one of my picks for the last category, the ones I'll buy, the ones I want to add to my collection from RSD 2024. And it's for the 1977's killer whale movie Orca, which obviously was made thanks to the success of Jaws and stars Richard Harris, Charlotte Rampling, Will Sampson, Bo Derek, Keenan Ween, and Robert Carradine. Released by Varese Saraband's new sub-label Real Cult in collaboration with Craft Recordings. Real Cult was set up specifically to release B-movie soundtracks, which obviously is totally up my alley and was tailor-made for my tastes. Orca did have a vinyl release on TAM Records in Japan back in 1977, so this is the first time it's getting a rest of the world vinyl release. This is an RSD first release pressed on blood in the water colored vinyl. It also includes a fold-out poster, cause who doesn't want a killer whale poster on his bedroom wall, and is limited to 1,700 copies. The other Varese Saraband Real Cult release is for an undersea 1972 blaxploitation movie titled Black Girl, directed by Ossie Davis and starring Peggy Pettit, Brock Peters, Leslie Huggins, and Claudia McNeil. It's based on the play by G.E. Franklin. Black Girl portrays life as a black woman in 1970s America, so definitely more on the drama side than say Shaft or The Mac. It did have a vinyl release back in 1973 on Fantasy Records. From what I read, this is very much a soulful and jazz-influenced funk soundtrack that features music by Ed Bogas and Ray Shanklin, who were the team behind Fritz the Cat and Heavy Traffic, and features artists from the Fantasy stable. This is an RSD first release pressed on black swirl colored vinyl and is limited to 1,500 copies. So go buy this and Orca so we can have even more Real Cult releases in the future. And the last vinyl soundtrack release of RSD 2024 I'm letting you know about is for 1994's Murder Was the Case. It's from the short film directed by Dr. Dre and Fab 5 Freddy, and chronicles the fictional death of Snoop Dogg and his resurrection after making a deal with the devil. The short's title came from the song of the same name from his debut album Doggy Style, released the year before. Very much worth checking out if you haven't. It did get a vinyl release on Death Row Records through Interscope back in 1994 and was reissued in 2001. This new reissue is still a 2 LP set, pressed on red vinyl. It's an RSD first release and is limited to 9,000 copies. And that is it for this year's complete list of vinyl soundtrack releases available on Record Store Day 2024. Go visit all my socials at Grindhouse Funhouse. In the comment section below, let me know what soundtrack or soundtracks you'll be picking up on RSD 2024. What's the one release that is on top of your list? More vinyl soundtrack related videos coming up soon, so stay tuned. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll say to you, ciao bye for now.